Welcome, everyone. I'm Bruce Delmonico, Assistant Dean for Admissions at the Yale School of Management. Thank you so much for attending tonight's event here in New Haven. Could be morning or afternoon, depending on where you're coming in from. I've got with me our four current students who are going to talk a little bit about the Yale SOM experience, and we're thankful for their joining us today. Before then, I want to talk a little bit about the program and just do a little bit of grounding of the Yale SOM, so our mission or values, and a little bit about the program, and then we'll open up. Then I'll have the students introduce themselves. I have some questions to get the ball rolling, and then I'd love to get as many questions as possible from you, so that you can really ask the questions that are most interesting and most relevant to you. And we'll use the Q&A section of the Zoom platform for that. So if you have questions, feel free to submit them through the Q&A. And as I said, we'll try to get to as many of them as possible in the hour that we have available to us. It's a little after 7 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. We'll go until roughly 8 p.m. And as I said, try to get as much information out to you as possible, try and share as much about the school as we can, mostly through the students. But again, I do want to just start quickly to talk a little bit about the school myself, just to kind of get the ball rolling. And I'd love to start, when we talk about the school, we always start with a mission to educate leaders for business and society. That's the founding mission of the school. It really kind of animates just about everything we do here. And it means lots of different things, and maybe the students will talk a little bit about what it means to them. But to me, it means that we have a very broad, very multi-sector mission, and that we aspire for our students and our graduates to have careers not just in the private sector, but the public and nonprofit sectors as well, and really to think about how the sectors really do interact and intersect in key ways. And so I think that's really kind of underpins a lot of what happens here at Yale SOM. Kind of in support of that mission, I think there are three really distinguishing features of the school that I just want to touch on very briefly. First is our integration with Yale. The second is our distinctively global footprint, and the third is sort of our aspiration to be the best source of elevated leaders across all regions and sectors. And so, just talking about each of those briefly, I would start with our integration with Yale. When you come to SOM, we say you come to Yale, and that takes lots of different forms. So we're a 2-year full-time MBA program. Most of the first year is taken up by the core curriculum, but you start to take electives in the spring of the first year, and then the entire second year is all electives, and you can take those anywhere at Yale without limit. I think that's a really important feature of the experience here at the School of Management. I know, at other programs, you can maybe take a handful of courses here or there, but really the entire university is open to you when you come to Yale SOM. So you can take courses, Yale College, the undergrad, law school, public health, environment school, the Jackson School of International Affairs, architecture, drama, again, anywhere at the university you want. So I think that's an important aspect of the experience. And in addition, outside the classroom, programmatically, there are lots of organizations that span the university. So Sci-City, for example, the Center for Innovative Thinking at Yale, is an organization. It's a hub for entrepreneurship. It's a hub for sort of design thinking. There's a makerspace, really connects students not just from SOM, but the law school, med school, public health, engineering, computer science, Yale College. It's a real sort of important node of activity here at the university. We also have our own entrepreneurship suite, but that's kind of scales it up to the entire university. And then one last thing I would say is, when you graduate from Yale SOM, you become a member not just of the SOM alumni network, which is an important thing, but the Yale University Alumni Network. And so the entire university network is open to you. And again, I think that's an important aspect of the experience, not just here at SOM, but that lives with you into your professional life. So that's a little bit about our integration with the university. The second piece is our distinctively global footprint. We might talk a little bit about that today. And I think all top U.S. business schools aspire to have a global reach. But we do feel that to fulfill the mission of the school to educate leaders for business and society, we feel our students and our graduates need to have that global perspective. And so there's a global studies requirement that happens here at SOM. Everybody who comes here, every student has that global experience. It was curtailed. It was pulled, during the pandemic, there are fewer options. Obviously, there's less traveling and less opportunity. And that's returned. And there are lots of different avenues to fulfill that experience. Some of them are school-specific or international experience trip, our global study, global social enterprise course, and other opportunities. And there are also opportunities through our Global Network for Advanced Management, which is a network of 30 schools around the globe that provide curricular opportunities, the Global Network Weeks, and global virtual courses and other opportunities. And again, we'll probably talk a little bit about that today with the students. And then the last thing is our aspiration, and really the reality of being the best source of elevated leaders across all regions and sectors. And that really speaks to our integrated curriculum, which is something that I think is very much a distinguishing feature of the experience here at Yale. Again, I won't go into detail. We have the students here to talk about it themselves, and I'll probably ask some questions about that. But it really, the idea behind it is that a lot of the same concepts that are taught in a traditional curriculum are taught in our integrated curriculum, but they're reorganized, reoriented, and along what we call a stakeholders perspective. So we try to break down the functional silos that exist in traditional MBA curricula and teach in a much more interdisciplinary, integrated way. We want our students, again, to think very broadly about the role they have and the various disciplines that they will interact with, different parts of an organization, how industries interact, and again, how the three sectors, public, private, and nonprofit, interact in key ways. And so that's a little bit about the curriculum. And I will, if you do have questions after today, obviously you can email us at mba.admissions@yale.edu. Happy to answer any questions you have. This session is going to be less admissions focused and more student focused, and more about, so we do have sessions coming up about the admissions process. I actually have an office hours tomorrow. I have them basically every week from now until the round 2 application deadline, where you can ask me questions. We have other sessions, Q&A sessions. We have an inside the application literally session coming up, where we walk through the application itself. We have our best application advice. So there's lots of admissions oriented stuff coming up, but today it's really about the students. And I'd love to, in that vein, I'll stop sharing and get us all on screen, and love to have the students please just introduce yourselves briefly. Maybe what you were doing before SOM, a little bit about your time here, and maybe any involvement in sort of clubs or activities, and your post MBA goals. And we can go around the circle. I have Alan in my screen. You're next to me, so I'm going to start with you, and then we can go around to everybody in just a quick introduction to kick things off. Sure.
Hi everyone, I'm Alan. Before SOM, I was at National Geographic doing kind of a mixture of finance and strategy. So here at SOM, I'm involved in largely APIA this year, which is our Asian American Pacific Islander Association. And after SOM, I'm going to be going to tech investment banking at Century Partners.
Thanks so much, Victoria. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so I'm Victoria. Before SOM, I was actually a paralegal, so very different. But while I've been at SOM, I've been involved with the nonprofit board fellows, the Discovery Project, Startup and Entrepreneurship Club, and student government. So you can have questions about that too. And then after SOM, I'm looking to work at a startup in sort of the consumer insights marketing space.
Hey everyone, I'm Sam. I'm originally from the UK, where I worked in tech policy, looking at work between the government and sort of big technology companies and bringing them together on policy issues. At SOM, I've mainly been involved in Consulting Club. Last year as a member, and then this year as a leader, and then also Net Impact, where I'm actually rushing off after this to go and judge one of their case competitions. But those are my sort of 2 main groups. And then post graduation, I'll be going to BCG in Denver. Really looking forward to it. Sort of always love the mountains, want to be out west again. But love the East Coast while I'm here.
Hi everyone, I'm Michelle. Before SOM, I was in the arts, so I was a music major in college, and I worked in nonprofit fundraising at Lincoln Center in New York City. This past summer, I interned at Bain, and I'll be returning to Bain after this, and one of the clubs I'm involved in is also the Consulting Club as a leader with Sam.
Great, thank you all for those introductions and for participating today. It's great to have you. I know you're all busy, there's a lot going on, but I really appreciate your taking the time to share your experiences with the attendees today. And again, I have a few questions to start with, but definitely feel free to, I know there's some coming in already, but feel free to use the Q&A to to post whatever questions you have. And as I said, we'll try to get to as many as we can. The first question I'd like to ask, and I'll say the ground rule is not everybody has to answer every question. We can get to more questions that way, but maybe so 2 or maybe 3 of you can answer each question or answer a question that's helpful just to get different perspectives. But the first one I'd love to get everyone's answer on, which is, why did you choose Yale SOM for your MBA experience? And I'm not going to cold call whoever wants to jump in.
I can jump in first again. I think I chose Yale largely because I think the community was a really compelling aspect to me. So, when I got outreach after being admitted, people really wanted to help and get to know me. And I felt like that really differentiated it for business schools. And, since starting here, I've actually found that to be even more true than I could have expected. It's like very tight-knit community.
Yeah, I feel like we're all gonna have a similar response. But I think for me, I was initially a bit kind of skeptical of doing an MBA. From what I heard from other people, it was very sharky and competitive and intense. And so I never really saw myself as somebody doing an MBA until I talked to people who are at SOM, and just the way they spoke about the program and the people they went to school with was completely different from the way people describe MBA programs usually. And so really for me, that was it. It was just like the culture, the community, the supportive system of just the people at SOM. And so that was what really sold me. And for me, I don't know if I would have done an MBA if I hadn't gotten into SOM. So yeah, for me, it just felt like such a great fit from the people I talked to and the people I spoke with. And yeah, very happy. It rang true, truly.
Yeah, I think for me, I've got sort of 2 answers for this. The easy one is my partner at the time was at the law school. And so it was an easy transition to pick Yale. But I think the other thing is coming from a sort of non-traditional policy background, the ability to really ground myself in the core early on. I don't really have many, do now have many sort of core business skills, and really having the ability to sort of pick them up through a structured curriculum, not being thrown straight into electives, and really kind of understanding the broad brushes of business and society, because we have some core components which are also on the society side as well, was like something that really, really appealed to me. I also felt, coming from sort of this policy background, I'd be able to fit in with the and society part of the mission as well, even if my sort of post-career goals were more on the business side, but I think that those are really the main reasons for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we can all say that community was a big part of it. I felt like SOM is somewhere I can really fit in, and I didn't have to prove myself. Like Sam, I came from a nonprofit background, so I was like, oh no, I always said the word but let me prove it to you. But at SOM, I feel like I didn't have to do that. And I saw so many people with a similar background or non-traditional, what is non-traditional anymore anyway, come to SOM and do really well, whatever they wanted to do, whether that's staying in social impact, going through the more traditional route, going to entrepreneurship. So SOM was a really great place. I'll just add on to here that I graduated from the School of Music a couple of years ago. Actually, it wasn't a joint program, but I left, worked in New York for a couple of years, and moved back to New Haven. So I love Yale. I love New Haven. Could talk about it all day.
Yeah, and actually, we should get to that at some point in your experience, not just at Yale, but in New Haven. But I would want to follow up a little bit. I think Michelle and Victoria, you both touched on kind of community culture and a little bit about what that's like. And maybe it could be either both of you, or maybe sort of 2 or so examples from different members of what that, maybe a little bit more about what the community is like, and maybe examples or anecdotes about, that exemplify or illustrate what the community is about.
Yeah, totally. So for me, I think it's really just the generosity and just unbridled support that everybody at SOM gives you. I mean, last year, especially taking kind of the less traditional routes, there's a lot of it is just kind of talking to people, and the way that the second years last year just would be so willing to share their time, and everyone is so busy here, so taking 30 minutes out of your day to talk through something with someone is really valuable. And people were always willing to do that, always willing to answer questions. And then I actually, something from earlier today, today was kind of the launch of the venture I've been working on. And the amount of people who showed up to support me today was unbelievable. And I was just so moved by the fact that people, took time out of their day to come support me. And I think that for me just is so like evident of the SOM community, that everybody just wanted to be there, wanted to help in any way they can, whether it was through like, giving feedback or, helping me set up my little booth. So yeah, I think, yeah, always supportive.
That's great. Thank you. And maybe one other, if anyone else has any other examples of thoughts on the community and examples or an example about what that, that exemplify what that looks like.
I can jump in here. What I really like about this panel of people right here is that I know everyone, but through very different paths. So Alan is the first one I met last August. We're in the same cohort. So, it's the MBA class of 350 or divided into cohorts, and you get close really fast. So Alan, like, we do a lot of social activities together as a cohort. Victoria, I didn't meet until January because we did a class together through the Yale Center for Customer Insights, where we worked on a consulting project with the client. So that was very academically focused, a lot of work put in. And then Sam, I didn't really meet until this year because we're both co-leaders of the consulting club. So this is how you see the interaction of like academic, social, recruiting all kind of come together. So I think part of community is just like all the ways you can get involved at SOM, and then all the people you can meet through those different paths.
That's great. I really appreciate that. That's a great example. And there are a couple different directions I could take it. And I want to actually loop back at some point on the career piece, but I also want to make sure we talk a little bit about, there are a few mentions of how busy everyone is and how much there is to do and how probably overwhelming at times. And I know there was a question that came in about what's the biggest lesson you learned at SOM outside the classroom, and maybe I would focus it on how, for those people who are attending and thinking about an MBA program, what have you learned in your time in MBA about how to manage all the things there are to do in an MBA program? Any thoughts on that from anyone would be great.
Yeah, I think I can jump in here. One of the big things that I'm still learning, I still have trouble with this, is being able to say no, because there are so many things to do. And, I'm in a situation this week where I'm through 8 till 10 every day just because of the amount of things I've said. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that. I'll do that. And I think if you can carve out time for you and time to sort of reflect on why you're doing this process, everyone who's on this call wants to pursue an MBA for a certain reason. They really have certain things that they have in mind, and really making sure that you kind of center that through your entire experience, I think is something that's really important, while also maybe allowing it to change. If you come in with a certain idea of why you're doing the MBA and then you discover something along the way, really taking that time to go, well, is this new route viable? Is it something that I really want to put effort into? And if I do want to put that effort into it, how do I rejig what I'm doing, my social events, my community events, my academic or sort of recruiting to really focus on that goal? That's probably what I would say is what I do.
Great. And I think we're one of the culprits, obviously, in terms of your late night week. So appreciate your being part of the session and you're saying yes to this. And any other thoughts about how to manage all the competing obligations of the MBA program?
Yeah, I can jump in. I think, one thing I realized pretty early on was you kind of have to make time for yourself. And people here will literally put time on your calendar sometimes. So I've actually learned I need to block off time to like go for a run, or even just like sit and like quietly read for an hour, just to kind of like unwind. So just making sure I'm structuring free time sounds a little bit oxymoronic, but I think it's really important.
That's great. Thank you so much. And I want to loop back. So Michelle, you did talk about the career piece, and then your answer, and that obviously is an important thing. If there's sort of the academic, I think probably the three big things are the academic experience, probably the social experience, and then and the sort of social slash extracurricular, and then the career piece. Obviously, you're all in an MBA program with an eye towards sort of furthering your professional lives. I'd love to get some sense from a few of you about, what resources have been helpful to you in the career search and how you kind of approach that process.
I can jump in here for consulting specifically. Well, of course, they have all the resources through the CDO, that's the Career Development Office. They are there every single day, helping you with office hours, getting your resumes ready, preparing you for interviews, but also your second year classmates are a huge help. Just the amount of support, because I know last year I got so much support from second years, and that was part of my motivation. This year, joining a leadership role was to help first years, and I love doing it. Also, there's the alumni network as well, who were a big part of my career journey. So I think, come to school open-minded and just know that the people around you are there to help you. And there's just an incredible amount of resources, no matter what background you come from. Everyone's there to help you get that job. So.
Great, thank you so much. Other thoughts?
It's also on consulting, so I'll first echo everything Michelle said, but not only your second years, your classmates can be super supportive. I remember when I was going through the process last year, my case team, which is sort of the group of 6 that you're with as you go through consulting recruiting, we all had each other's backs. It wasn't just, we weren't in competition with each other at all. It was much more of a, okay, we're going to make sure that we all get through this, and we're all going to sort of push each other over the line, and it worked out well. All 6 of us got jobs in consulting, which is what we were looking for. But I think, there's a lot of things to leverage. I mean, I'll echo the CDO as well, especially the behaviorals. I hadn't really done many behavioral interviews prior to SOM, and then sort of the ability to have those sort of mock interviews with the CDO where there's no stakes and you can really work out what your issues are and where you perhaps need to improve before you head into a sort of the game time situation is really, really useful.
That's great, Sam. Thank you so much. I'd love to stay. I have a couple questions that have come in about recruiting, about careers. So I'm going to stay on this for a little bit and then maybe transition to a few other things. But one question was about how difficult was it to make the career transition without having prior experience, making a pivot in your career. So a question about, especially with the internship process, since you've all been through that, any thoughts on that in terms of making the career transition, making a pivot, and what went into that, and any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about this as somebody who had 0 business experience coming into an MBA. And so I think that was something I was definitely conscious of in recruiting, that, I didn't have a job on my resume, but I think at SOM, I was able to build up my resume in really helpful ways. So Michelle mentioned this earlier, but we were on the same team for the Discovery Project, which is this really amazing class that you can take through the Yale Center for Consumer Insights. And basically in this class, you get to be a behavioral science consultant for a real client. And so being able to, speak to that in interviews and have that on my resume allowed me to kind of show my interest in consumer insights and marketing without having, prior SOM experience. So I think there are a lot of opportunities at SOM to really build up your resume, even, if you're switching careers or even if you have, 0 experience beforehand.
Great. Thanks so much, Victoria. Any other thoughts there? Sorry, did I cut you off?
Yeah, I can say, resume aside, just by the time you get to your internship, you would have gone through the entire core curriculum, which covers all the different roles in an organization and different viewpoints from leadership. So, it's at a basic level because it is the core curriculum, and then you take more electives your spring semester in your second year. But I think even just having been in those classes with those professors and learning from my classmates, I was ready for my job and was surprised by how much I knew. I think the harder part of the transition was transitioning from being a student to working over the summer. But I think through your classes and also through the professional clubs on campus, those are there too to help you prepare for your internship for specific industries.
No, that's a great
I-
point. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Sorry, Sam.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to add as well. I think as well, like, you might think that you come from a background which doesn't have many relevant skills, but actually you do. And a lot of, if you get into Yale SOM, you've got the core skills that you need kind of down. Maybe you don't know all the facts, but you have the skills that you need, and just really working out what your strengths are and sort of what value you can bring. You can have a background which is completely different to what you expect the role is looking for, but actually you have some fundamental skills there that they're still really looking for. That was just all I was going to add.
No, that's great. Thank you so much. And there was a question too. So Victoria, you in I think in a couple of answers you talked about YCCI, the Yale Center for Customer Insights, and the discovery projects, and sort of the experiential learning that is part of that. And I did have someone ask about other sort of experiential run, I guess, about other sort of experiential courses or courses opportunities. So working with clients. And I don't know if anyone else had any other of those types of opportunities, but I'd love to, feel free to share if you have. Talk more about those kinds of courses. And it might not be. Seeing some head shaking. I was taking a shot at it. I know the discovery projects are a big one. I know there are other ones, but I did not get the
well, I
right
was
pen
going to
for that.
say, yeah, I haven't done this myself, but I know the global social entrepreneurship course is kind of similar, where you're working, on a real project with real people, and it's, that kind of experiential project-based learning, which I think is super valuable.
Yeah.
But I can't speak from experience on that one.
Yeah. No, that's hit or miss. I know it's a 4-person panel. So, but I would like to, keeping on the global theme, I did have a couple questions come in about global engagement opportunities. And global studies, the global social enterprise obviously is again experiential. That's a course where you're actually doing consulting work in another country, and that's very it combines global with the consulting piece. But we also do have the global studies requirement, international experience trip, the global network weeks. Love to hear a little bit more about your experiences with global engagement and global opportunities at SOM.
Yeah, I can jump in. I didn't do an IE last year, so I'm looking at doing it this year. And every year after COVID, they've been opening more and more destinations, which I think is super exciting. So this year they're opening up Bhutan, which is like a small country in like Western Asia that's very hard to get into. So excited about that, but also kind of looking at Korea and Norway as possibilities.
Yeah, I'm really hoping Alan doesn't outbid me on the Bhutan trip, because I'm also looking to do that. But another thing I wanted to flag is I'm currently taking a course which is GNAM associated. So I'm taking economic analysis of high-tech industries with Ted Schneider. And so half our class is SOM, but the other half of the class come from all around the world. So we have students in China, we have students in India, we have students in Western Europe, in Africa. And it's really, really interesting to hear people's different perspectives on sort of high-tech technologies in their country and how that's being adopted, and sort of looking at crossovers, and perhaps if one area has particularly good technology, how that can transfer, and really learning from students from across the GNAM schools is something that I've really valued. And, my team is made up of 2 SOMers and 3 non-SOMers, and having that connection and that experience is wonderful.
Great, thank you so much for both those answers. I'd love to sort of stick with a theme. I talked when I gave my initial remarks, and I want to shift gears a little bit. I talked about the connections to the larger university and kind of the ways in which you're being at Yale SOM, you're at Yale, and you're able to engage with the other schools and the university more generally. And I'd love to any examples that you've experienced of that kind of engagement, any ways you've been able to integrate with and be part of the larger Yale University, and ways you've leveraged the university during your time here at SOM?
Yes, I think so. For the, engaging with other programs, I think so. I'm in a healthcare strategy class right now that's cross-listed with, I think, MPH and MD. And so there are people in my class who, have super different perspectives. When we talk about these business problems, they have experience working in a hospital, which just offers such a different perspective. And so it's been really, really nice to, have that in the classroom. But then also you mentioned Sci-City earlier when you were talking about kind of the broader campus, and that has been a super valuable resource for me. They put on amazing programming. They bring in, CEOs of these huge companies, and you get to have lunch with them and, talk with them one-on-one. And, they, just 2 weeks ago, they brought in somebody from Google to do a workshop on how to run Google ads for your small venture. And so, those kinds of resources that are open to absolutely everybody on campus are awesome, because then you also get to meet people from the broader Yale group. And whether it's, you're looking for a tech co-founder or, somebody to, help you out with the kind of the bio part of your biotech company, it's a great resource.
Great, thanks so much. Any other examples or any other thoughts about integrating with Yale? And I did have a follow-up question. There's talking about other courses that you took, electives that you're thinking about or taking outside of SOM.
This is a bit of a random one, but I'm taking one of the language classes at Yale. Yale is really well known for their language classes. I'm taking Hebrew, elementary Hebrew. It's like one of my favorite parts of the day because it's just so different than everything we do. So I'm starting to look at the course catalog for next semester, and I think there are like way more classes that I want to take than I actually need to take. So I'll need to start looking at it. I've heard some classes at the Divinity School are really cool, and then of course classes at the School of the Environment. But yeah, language classes at Yale, a few of us are taking it. It's a big commitment, but Yale does it really well.
I think there's also integration, not just on the classes we can take, but just in how sort of we interact. So, there are events all across Yale all the time. I think I've been in most of the buildings here at this point to hear various speakers. And then there's also the social side, so there's a lot of intramural leagues. I played volleyball and softball, and in both of those, we sort of engage with other graduate schools in a sort of more social setting and really sort of have fun with the wider Yale community. It doesn't have to just be the work hard, it can also be the play hard.
That's great, thank you all. And actually along those lines, I did get a question which was very directly, what social club is the most popular at SOM? Picking up the social theme. I'll broaden it. I don't know what's more, I think that's, I don't know if there's a definitive ranking, but I'd love to talk a little bit more, and Sam, you opened the door there, with other things you're doing socially. Obviously, as we talked about, there's the academic piece, there's the career piece, but then there's sort of the clubs and the social piece, which is another important aspect. And so building off your answer just now, Sam, any other things you do on the social side that is kind of notable and that the audience might be interested in hearing about?
Well, so racket sports are a very big deal here. For whatever reason, people just love all sorts of racket sports. So, squash, pickleball this year has just blown up. So earlier this year, we had a pickleball tournament, which was super fun. We had like almost 80 people join. It was such a blast. And so that's just kind of a fun way to stay active. And New Haven is beautiful. So we have these like beautiful courts right next to East Rock Park. And so it's a really nice way to just kind of stay active, do something fun with your friends, even if you've never picked up a racket before. We just have like a strong culture of people getting together and yeah, playing sports.
Yeah, I think even outside of like formal activities, some of my favorite experiences in the MBA have been like small Airbnbs that we've got like in upstate New York, or I went to Morocco last spring break with a few classmates from our cohort, and I think those are great ways to not only like broaden your perspective, but also get to know your classmates really well in an environment that's outside of kind of the Yale bubble. I think it's been great.
Yeah, I think the third thing I'll just add is sort of the, obviously it's not the main point of an MBA program, but we have a wine class, which is really fun to take part in. We have our TAs who graciously pour us wine on a Monday night. And along those lines as well, we have sort of various events where we go and cheer on our teams. So we go and sort of support the hockey team when they go practice on Wednesday nights. And, closing bell is happening right now. Closing bell is a tradition where sort of it's the end of a school week, we don't have class on Friday usually. So it's a sort of, oh, okay, the week's done. Let's all get together and celebrate as a group and really support this community together.
That's awesome. Thank you all. Those are great answers and great perspectives into sort of the life outside the classroom here at SOM. And I'd love to broaden it even more. We've talked about Yale, we talked about social peace. We sort of teased this earlier, but there were a couple questions about living in New Haven and what it's like to live in New Haven. And I think, Victoria, maybe you mentioned this when we talking about East Rock a little bit. But any thoughts on not just being at SOM or being at Yale, but being in New Haven and what that's like during your MBA time?
I'm always happy to talk about this because I am New Haven's #1 fan. But so I lived in New York City before coming here, and so I was a little nervous. I was like, oh, I came from like one of the biggest cities, in the world, and now coming to this smaller town. But it has been amazing, like coming from the chaos and craziness of New York City, being able to just like walk down these beautiful tree-lined streets to a coffee shop and sit outside is just so welcome. And I think just, the people of New Haven, I live in East Rock, which is more the kind of residential area. So either students kind of live either in downtown or in East Rock, but East Rock is kind of more residential. It's closer to East Rock Park. And it's just so nice. It's so lovely. East Rock Park, I think, is one of the prettiest hikes. And especially right now in the fall with all the leaves turning, like definitely Google image that afterward. It's stunning. And so I think like what's nice about living in New Haven while you're doing an MBA program is that if you're in a bigger city, people are going to be kind of hanging out with people they knew from before, or, people from college. And because we're all sort of, in this space together, you bond really quickly. Nobody's going out to drinks with their college friends. Everyone is like hanging out here with Yale people. And so it really brings you together. And I think that's one of the reasons why the community here is so strong, is because we're not, in this big city where there are all these distractions. And yeah.
I think as well, so before I came to New Haven, I'd heard a sort of few bad things. I think it's got a general bit of a bad reputation, and I have never been more happy to have all those fears allayed so quickly. I love living here. I think it might be the favorite place I have lived, and I've lived in quite a few big cities so far. So I think it's just a really awesome place. And I think, you can really find your community, whether that's within Yale or outside of Yale. So, I attend a church the other side of a river, which is sort of mainly working class Latino people. And it's like a really great community for me to have. And you can really find everything you need in New Haven, even though it is quite small.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. So I grew up in Houston, which is a huge city. Had a car, drove everywhere, grocery stores like half a mile away, you drive there. And then I came up to New Haven for my music degree, like I mentioned. Went and lived in New York for 3 years, loved New York. I was really looking forward to moving back to New Haven. I feel like I'm like a New England gal. But I just think it is like a different change of pace of lifestyle, but I think that's like what I wanted right now. And of course, you hear too, like it's a 2-hour train ride from New York, it's a 2-hour train ride from Boston, and you hear, you're like, do people actually go? Like, yes, it is so easy to get to the city. My sister lives in New York, so I go there quite often. But I think like some really cool things are popping up in New Haven, so I'm really happy here.
That's great. Thank you all. And actually, just a quick follow-up. I did more, out of idle curiosity, how often it is, 2-ish hours to New York to, maybe a little bit longer to Boston. How often are you in either of those cities? Is it, I know, because I know a lot of people when they come, they say, I'm going to be every weekend in New York City. But I know that's not really how it plays out. So I don't know how frequently you tend to be there versus, staying in New Haven.
The thing is, there's so many awesome things to do here that people say that, but then you're not going to want to leave. Like, you're not going to want to miss out on the awesome things happening here on the weekends. And I know people who have weddings and they're like, oh, don't get to be in New Haven this weekend. I have to go to a wedding. And so I think, I also have family in the city, so I go maybe once every other month or something like that. But yeah, there's just every time I go, I miss out on something awesome here. So yeah.
Yeah, I'd echo that. I'm probably going down to just to see friends in New York maybe twice a semester. And every time I go, like the FOMO is real. I just know something that I want to go to is happening in New Haven. So
That's great. Thank you both. Love to shift gears a little bit. We're about 2/3 of the way through, so we have a little bit more time. Want to shift gears. One thing we haven't talked about are, I don't think in any real detail, are alumni and the ways in which you've interacted with, engaged with the alumni during your time at SOM. And I'd love to hear more about the ways in which that's happened and what advice you have about how to leverage alumni in your both the MBA experience and maybe kind of even as you anticipate outside of the MBA experience.
Oh, I'm happy to jump in on this. So I'm currently in a class called the Founders Practicum, which is a class for people who have either started or are hoping to start a venture while they're at SOM. And what's great about it is, you have these awesome mentors, professors at SOM, but every week during class, or almost every week, they'll bring in a founder, and it's almost always an SOM alum. And it's so cool to get to see how people have kind of gone out into the world and created their own companies. And they're always just like the willingness to connect, after class. They always give their contact info. They always are like, please reach out if there's anything I can do to help you. If there's, if you just want to chat, like something out, please reach out. And so that is so appreciated to even, spare their time, these founders of these companies to come and chat with us, but also to be so open to talking to students and being, mentors and support systems is super valuable.
I think I also found it on the recruiting front. So usually the first line of people you speak to at various firms you're interested in are people who have gone to SOM previously. And they've always been so kind and generous with their time. I had one SOM alum while I was in the midst of casing. She offered to case me on Christmas Eve, which was absolutely ridiculous and goes beyond what you'd want, but it's a community that we kind of build here, really. I think especially, we're all leaving here next year, but once we're gone, we're going to be more than happy. Whenever an SOMer reaches out to us, I'm actually going to be excited to talk to them, because it's going to be like, oh, this was such a foundational part of my life, and I know it's going to be a foundational part of their life, and I really want to pay forward what I received.
yeah, I think, this summer at my firm, there were actually two partners who, one was a Yale SOM alum and one was a Yale alum, and just the amount of time they were willing to give to me, even in the office, was just really, it was great. I could just go in and like ask them to grab coffee anytime. I think just like showing that level of investment in the community, even after they left campus, left a pretty lasting impression on me.
That's wonderful. Thank you all for those examples. Love to switch gears a little bit. Just look at the questions that have been coming in. Going back to maybe the academic piece, there's a question that seems interesting to me. Now that you're all in your second years and you're have freedom to choose what courses you take, and one question is, are there any electives you took that are considered must-take courses? What are maybe some of the courses that you really would recommend to others who are coming into the MBA experience?
Yeah, I'm currently in a course on the global financial crisis that's co-taught by Tim Geithner, which is just really cool. So he gives us like the background on everything that was happening in the room while the crisis was unfolding. So would definitely highly recommend that.
I'm currently in a class called marketing strategy, which is really, really fundamentally changing how I look at strategic decisions. It's not just necessarily a marketing piece, but it's also a product piece. It's where do where is this situated and how can we drive the most value from it? And it's really, really helping me become more strategic. So I'd recommend that. I'd also recommend a class that I didn't bid high enough on, but everyone who took the class seems to have been transformed. But decision making with data with Peter Schott, everyone who's taken that class has been like, it's blown them away. And even when I've seen the data sets they're working on, it's really interesting. Like it's taking raw data, which is messy, which is, doesn't have a straight line conclusion, and building stories around that. And that's a lot of what you're going to be doing post-graduation, is that building a story piece. And so I think that class is really foundational if you manage to get into it.
I also did not bid high enough for decision making with data. But I just want to echo Sam, customer marketing strategy. We're only like 2 weeks into it now. It is a very good class. It is probably the most strategically focused class I've taken. I don't know if I knew what I was expecting going into it, because you hear the word marketing, but you're thinking about all the elements in the firm and how all those decision making go together. So I think that's probably the highlight of this quarter at least, but I'm looking at a lot of things in the spring catalog as well.
Yeah, I mentioned the Discovery Project, which was awesome, and healthcare strategy that I'm taking now. But something I also wanted to mention is that at SOM, you can do an independent project. So I'm actually doing that this quarter, and I'm working with Professor Zauberman on kind of a applied behavioral science course. And so me and one of my really good friends here are just really into behavioral science. And so he agreed to kind of mentor us for that class, and we're just looking at the ways in which we can apply kind of behavioral science theory to kind of app development, and looking at the really kind of specific nitty-gritty ways in which we can apply the research into kind of real life. And so that's just a great opportunity that if you have an interest, it's really easy to turn that into kind of a project and get to work with a professor really closely. So that's an awesome opportunity if that's something that you want to do.
Yeah, that's an excellent example. That's a great point. I think they're all wonderful courses, but also the ability to customize and to sort of do something, do independent work with professors, I think is a great option, great opportunity. And I'd love to, I have had a couple questions come in just now about entrepreneurship. And I know, Victoria, I don't want to pick on you because I feel like you've been bearing the brunt of those questions, but there were questions about resources at Yale regarding innovation and entrepreneurship, mention of SciCity, which we talked about, Yale Ventures. Anybody who's interested in sort of VC entrepreneurship, are there, what types of things are available? Any additional thoughts that, I know, Victoria, you're probably the closest to it, but if anyone else has thoughts too as well.
Yeah, I'm always happy to talk about this. I think SOM gives you really broad support. So I think, you get support from the club angle. So there's the, venture capital student club, also the startup and entrepreneurship student club. And so they offer great programming. They bring in speakers. They provide, second year, first year mentorship. And so that's really great. And then you also have SciCity, which is, all of Yale has great programming, and it's also just a great space to go to meet people and to do your homework. It's a beautiful space also. And then there's the entrepreneurship lab, which is, to me, like one of the funnest places in SOM. It's in the basement, and they have Legos on the table. They have fun memes on the wall. They have like their own library, and truly the entrepreneurship professors here are incredible. Like they've all started their own companies, super successful, and now they're here, taking their time to mentor us. And so I've found that has been really like the most helpful resource is the mentorship from professors. So right now, I mentioned the Founders Practicum. You get, a weekly meeting with your mentor to go over, any thoughts, any feedback. You set goals for yourself. It really keeps you accountable. And so I, feel unbelievably supported by like the other people in the class and also the professors. And so if that's something you want to do, there is a lot of support for you, even if it's just, financial support, like getting funding. They give out a lot of grants for entrepreneurship, kind of at SOM and the broader Yale community. So there's a lot of good support if that's something you're interested in doing.
That's great. Thank you so much. So I'm sorry to pick on you, but that was super helpful. I don't know if anyone else has any other things to add, not that you have to, but if you do have other thoughts, feel free to jump in. Okay. I want to take the questioning in a somewhat different direction, and kind of get real a little bit here. I had a couple questions come in. Obviously, everyone on this who's sort of attending is thinking about the MBA, thinking about what they want to do post MBA. And I know we're not going to talk about the application process itself. We have other sessions there, but I think everyone feels as though they need to have a sense of what they want to do post MBA when they apply, and be able to articulate that in their application. And a couple questions about specifically, did your long-term career goals change after entering SOM? And do you now want to do something different than you thought you wanted to do, and kind of how did that come about, if so?
Oh, go ahead, Sam.
No, you can go first, Alan. Okay, I'm on. When I applied, I'm pretty sure that I wanted to start a business. I had a sort of nascent idea behind sort of an entrepreneurship program, and I was really intent on sort of pushing that forward. That actually changed naturally for me in the sort of months after I quit work before starting at SOM. I really had some time to think about the product I was thinking of creating. And I realized it wasn't the right time in my life to do that. And I actually had some fundamental skills I needed to learn first, which pushed me towards consulting, because I think in consulting, you earn so many sort of fundamental skills on your first couple of years in the job, skills that I was maybe lacking. And so I was really in a position of, okay, let's actually nail this down now. And then I can maybe go in a few years and start this business that I want to start with a better tool set to make sure it succeeds.
Yeah, kind of similar to Sam. I was coming from media, and I definitely thought I wanted to go straight back into media, doing like corporate strategy or something like that. I came in, and it was actually a very winding road. So I pursued the entire consulting recruiting path, and then kind of made a veer like over towards banking at the last minute in December. So I think like as my goals changed, there were always people at the CDO and also just like classmates in second years who were happy to support and like help me figure out what my journey was going to be. And then once I sort of committed to the banking process, people were there for sure to like support me as I was like really just trying to cram in technical interview prep. So I think, the support of the community was really key in that. And I don't think I would have made it through had it not been for some of the second years, especially.
Great, thank you both, and hopefully just those answers give a little bit of a sense. I'm not going to sort of talk admissions, but I know for people who are thinking about applying, there's a stress about those post MBA goals, and you have to have it all figured out. And you're going to continue to explore, you're going to continue to experiment, and so don't feel like what you say you're going to do in your application has to be kind of the final word on all of this. We have just a couple minutes. I would maybe like one or two more questions. One came in, I don't know if this is relevant to anyone, but it's an important topic, a question about resources for partners and families at SOM. I don't know if that's relevant to any of you, if there's anything you want to are able to share on that front, but that is a question that came in. I think it's, a significant percentage of the students are in that situation. So any thoughts you have would be great.
Yeah, I don't currently have a partner. I did have a partner, but I think something that's been really lovely to see across Evans Hall over the last sort of few months is since sort of COVID restrictions have lifted up, you see a lot more of the families on campus. You see a lot more of, if their mum is in class, their dad comes over with the child to say hi at the end of class before going on the next trip. And I think that's been a really lovely way to include them. I think also there's a really solid partners group. So there was a partners group Halloween sort of little party, which was mainly for the children, but sort of across Evans, where they would knock on the doors of each sort of classroom and be a couple of SOMers inside handing out candy for the kids. And I think it's something that we really pride ourselves on as a school, is something that, that if you come to SOM, not only are you coming to SOM, your partner is also there. They have the opportunity to audit classes. they have the opportunity to really further their sort of own goals and use the resources that Yale has to really push for whatever they're aiming for as well.
You know, there are some partners who you don't know if they're a partner or if they're an MBA student because they're so entrenched in the community. So there's a lot of opportunities. My partner isn't here, but I know the partner group is strong, and they do a lot.
Great, thank you both. Maybe try and squeeze in 2 more questions. We have a few minutes. This might be a little tricky one, but what's the most challenging thing about SOM? That question came up a couple times, and so I'd love to get any thoughts about what do you find most challenging? Might have stumped the panel on this one.
I don't want to speak too much, but I think it comes back to something we were talking about earlier about time prioritization. And there really is so many things you can do. Working out what is going to be the best for your experience is something that is really challenging. You know, on any given day, there's probably 4 or 5 lunchtime talks. There's probably sort of 4 or 5 after school talks, you know, after class. There's a whole bunch of things that you can be doing, and really working out what is your best adventure, your best opportunity is really difficult. And, you know, sometimes you skip something and someone walks out and goes, oh, this is the best thing I ever encountered, and you feel really sad that you missed it. And I think trying to work out where you want to go is really difficult.
Yeah, kind of on that same note, there's so many things, and you, especially when you come in, you're like, I just want to say yes to everything. I want to absorb everything. I want to like learn as much as I can in these 2 years that, let me tell you, absolutely fly by. And so I think, yeah, being, you know, knowing when to say no and being able to take time for yourself. I mean, it's a lot of time with other people. Like there's very little me time just because there's so much to do and it's such a social place. But I want to share something that I was an orientation leader this past fall for the incoming class, and one of the other orientation leaders shared this during an orientation. I think it's a great metaphor. She said, being at SOM is like being at a buffet. And your plate is only so big, only so many things fit on the plate. And oftentimes you're walking down the buffet line and you know, you look over at somebody else's plate and you're like, oh my goodness, like they have so many things, like they have all these cool things, like, oh, I don't know, like, am I missing out? But really it's just about priorities. You need to look at your plate and say like, this is really important to me. So I'm going to like save more plate, you know, for the mashed potatoes, because those really matter to me. Or, you know, there may not be as much space for other stuff, but that's okay because that's really your priority. So I think, you know, having that plate and you know, not coming into SOM thinking like, okay, these are the things I'm going to do, but being really open-minded and, you know, saying like, oh, let me try new things and say yes to something that maybe I wouldn't have otherwise. I think, yeah, it's hard because you want to say yes to everything, but yeah, kind of striking that balance and not overfilling your plate also.
That's wonderful. And I think that's a great note to end on, and a great piece of advice. And so maybe we're coming right up at the 8 o'clock hour here on the East Coast of the US. So let's stop there. I want to thank my panelists, so Alan, Victoria, Sam, and Michelle, for all your great insights and for taking the time to do this session. Hopefully, for those of you attending, this was valuable. You learn a little bit more about what it's like to be a student at SOM, and you got a little bit more of a sense of what it's really like here in the program. I know there are some questions we couldn't get to. Please feel free to email. It's mba.admissions@yale.edu if you have any additional questions. We're happy to answer. And I know that we do have some other. This was a student session talking about student life. We do have some admissions-oriented sessions coming up. I know. So I would just pop onto the chat. So inside the application, literally. Is coming up on November 22nd, and I might try. We also have our best application advice coming up on December 9th. I'm just going to throw that up on there too. I can type quickly enough, which I usually cannot. And that I'm going to be participating in as well. And we welcome you to join either or both of those, as well as our other events, as you're thinking about your MBA application more specifically in advance, possibly of our January 5th round 2 application deadline. So it's a little bit of plug for the admission specific events coming up. But again, thank you to the panelists for taking the time. Great answers, really great insights. Thank you all for attending. Have a great rest of your day or rest of your night, depending on when you're coming in from. And we look forward to continuing to be in touch. So thank you all. Have a great day.